It's reasonable. Having said that, Baylor presents a lot different challenge than Arizona State. But we have to be better defensively, and there's no getting around that.
Is the adage that you learn more about your team after a loss than you do after a win? Now, that's not the preferred method, obviously, but you take a loss like that, is that true? Do you take more from it that you can use to build on it?
Well, I think it exposes, your weaknesses, maybe where you're vulnerable at that stage of the year. I think it gives reality to the players. We have to get better because of it. I think it'd be foolish, whether it's me as the coach, our team, individual players, to not respond accordingly and fix what we saw as a major problem against Arizona State. I think it certainly gives reality. If it doesn't, then you weren't part of the game on Friday.
You've never shied away from challenging your team in a non-conference. Is that kind of what this is all about? This is where you're preparing your team for further down the road?
I mean, we have to. We have to play the best teams that we can, the teams that will agree to play us home and home. Because our league is going to be tough as it is. We had 7 teams in the tournament a year ago. I think the league is every bit as good as it was last year. And so if we play a bunch of cupcakes and Division IIs, and then by the time the Big East comes around, there may not be enough time in the season to correct some things. So you learn a lot about your team in the non-conference. I think the selection committee has shown that if you go out and challenge yourself, that you don't get penalized by losing to really, really good teams. And that's sort of been our MO in terms of scheduling over the last several years, well before I was the head coach.
You have witnessed, enjoyed whatever this game as a fan, a player, and a coach. You're probably the only person who can say that. Can you try to give us a little perspective on each, how you approached the game as a fan, how you approached it as a player, and how you approach it now as a coach?
Are you talking about the crosstown?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. We have Baylor tomorrow. I mean, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you, after we play Baylor, Paul. You can call me anytime you want, but it'd be foolish to start talking about an opponent publicly that we don't play until Saturday when we have one of the biggest non-conference games of the year tomorrow night here in the Cintas.
Chris, there were some great non-conference games last year. Probably not one of this caliber, just because if only because Baylor's ranked. Do nights like tomorrow night, how does that affect you emotionally? Do you get excited? Do you enjoy it?
I mean, I get excited for every game. I think we recognize how strong of a program Baylor is, and what they did to us last year, and the problems they present on both ends of the floor. So it's a big challenge. I wouldn't have scheduled the game, and we wouldn't have scheduled the game if we didn't think that we could compete to win. Baylor's had our number. Again, I think what Scott Drew's done with the program since he took over is remarkable. Probably doesn't get enough credit nationally for the job he's done, and this year's team is no different. So our guys are well aware of that, and we're going to have to be ready to go tomorrow night.
Obviously, Arizona State's guards presented some serious issues. You mentioned different challenges. What makes Baylor's guards maybe different at all from Arizona State?
Well, it's not so much their guards. I mean, obviously, is a terrific guard. He manhandled us a year ago. He had 24 points. He got in the lane. I think he was more of an unknown quantity when we played him a year ago, versus who he is now. But I just meant overall in terms of how Baylor plays, they're a little bit more football team-like. We're going to run a play. We're going to walk the ball up on a made shot, and we're gonna use our size to our advantage. We're gonna post up. We're gonna offensive rebound, and they do it really, really well. So, they're not the high-flying team that Arizona State is. They're not shooting, 33s in a game, and letting their guards just sort of shoot transition pull-ups and some circus shots. They're a little bit more methodical, but there's a million ways to skin a cat, and they do it really well.
Chris, Karen Cantor seemed to me to be playing on Friday at a much different level than, I mean, what he did on Friday was different for me than any of his previous performances in the young season. Are you happy with where he at, and how close do you think he is to contributing significantly on a steady basis?
Yeah, I mean, what I saw on Friday out of Karam was what we anticipated in the preseason.
Yeah.
You know, he was terrific early on in preseason practices before, you know, anybody in the public saw him play. And then, as I told Karam the other day, he didn't play very well in the first few games. You know, he wasn't a presence on either end. He was weak with the ball. He didn't finish around the rim when he had a size advantage, and he completely flipped that while we were out in you know, Las Vegas. So it gives me a lot of confidence as a coach. And as I told him, you know, I'll play the guys that play the best. And I think that was very evidenced a year ago when you know, an unknown freshman in Tyreek sort of upseated a fifth-year senior in Rashid. Like, you know, coaches want to win, and we're going to put the best players out there that perform the best in practice, play the best. And I thought his play in Las Vegas certainly reflected more of who we thought Karam was in the preseason.
And it opens up the offense a bit more, doesn't it?
It can. You know, it can. He really knows how to play, can pass the ball. He's a dual threat, both facing the basket and with his back to the basket. And I think as his teammates gain even more confidence in him, you know, we become that much more difficult to guard. And I thought defensively he did a really good job. He rebounded the ball. He ignited our break. You know, he held his own underneath against some two, you know, high major athletes. So Karam brings a lot to the table, and it was good to see him sort of come out of his shell on Friday.
What do you want to see from Quentin tomorrow night that maybe you didn't see him?
Well, I think he's got to be more disciplined and locked in on the defensive end. You know, so much about the way kids play in AAU and high school nowadays is you just pay attention when your man has the ball. And, you know, it's probably why fans have that angst of, you know, the ball doesn't move like it used to. You know, the old guys, basketball's not the same. Well, it's because a lot of times guys are so good with the ball and they're handling it that defensively you get lazy and you only play defense when your man has the ball. And you know, Quentin has to quit turning off his concentration level when he's off the ball because it leads to mistakes as he's closing out onto the ball. He should be a dominant defender. And it's something that we've talked about really since day one. He's 6'4". He's the strongest player on our team. He's the most athletic. He can affect the game in a lot of ways, and he needs to do it more than just on the ball. He needs to rebound defensively. He needs to be the point of attack on the defensive end, down the stance. He's going to have to guard the best perimeter players at times. And then offensively, I think finding guys, getting the ball in the right spots, making the right decision, you know, all the time. And I think, you know, that's always a challenge when you're a point guard. You know, Skip Prosser used to say, you do what the game tells you to do. If you drive it in and they stick on the shooters, then you finish at the rim. If the big guy helps up, then you drop it off to the big guy. If guards suck in, you kick it out to the open shooter. And, you know, that's what really, really good point guards do. You know, sometimes they might have a night where they get 20, and the next night they might have 4. And as long as their team wins and they run their team and do what the game tells them to do, they're usually the most effective. And that's all I want Quentin to do. It's a lot, but that's what the great ones learn how to do.